This is the examination of the hidden human condition.
You're listening to the Hidden Killers Podcast.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Bruschi.
Tracy Walder is joining us. Tracy, former CIA, FBI special agent. I want to get some insight from her as to functionality of various authority groups, FBI, CIA, local police forces, state troopers, all the different groups and bureaucracies that when not working as a team, how things can get swept under the rug, how things can fall through the cracks, and how certain ones sometimes are stepping in to say, wait a second, what do you mean you guys didn't need our help? You didn't do anything here. And now we're picking up your dirty work all these years later. Of course, I'm talking about the Stephen Smith case, where it just wasn't investigated to very much of an extent at the request of the local low country authorities, but then SLUD getting involved once the investigation into the murder of Maggie and Paul started going. And then they're like, wait a second, we found something here. What they found that sparked the investigation into Stephen Smith within the Murdaugh case is still a mystery. But the arguments of don't connect the Murdaughs to this and that, I agree. I'm not going to connect any one person or blame any one person, but the whole reason this damn thing got back off the ground was because of the Murdaughs and an investigation into them. So there's that, which is just a fact of how this thing got rolling again. Now, as far as implicating an individual, I'm not going to do that because I think there's not enough evidence to really point in a specific direction. There's rumors, there's accusations, there's this, there's that. Let's just kind of let the evidence speak for itself as it slowly begins to come out. Anyway, long time coming in my wording, Tracy, with these agencies from the local authorities to SLED to federal investigators in a case like this. How does this work where something like this could be swept under the rug for so long and then suddenly it's back out into the spotlight?
I'm not sure if it's a matter of it being swept under the rug. I think that, I'm in Dallas. That's a big city,
sure.
Right?
Yep.
And I think that when you're in sort of some of these smaller communities, and I talked to some of my criminal justice students about this, when you're in some of these smaller communities, there does tend to be more of a tolerance in terms of sweeping things under the rug because people tend to be more personally connected and personally involved. I mean, I would say a perfect example in this case was the fact that it was revealed that a rape kit was done. And then obviously that kit was never further tested. Obviously that's problematic. And so I think things like that, especially when you're dealing with people that have power and influence, can get swept under the rug sooner rather than later.
And with some of these things that we're now learning about, let's talk about that rape kit. I mean, other than there being some sign of a rape, I mean, this is not a standard thing to be ordered, I would assume, on a hit and run.
Right. No, you're absolutely right, Tony. That's, to be completely honest with you, and no one's talking about it as much, which is very surprising to me. I think that's the big deal here, to be totally honest with you. I do not understand if you are so sure that this is a hit and run, that that's what you're going to classify it as, to the point that when you came to the body on the scene, that's what you assumed. I'm not certain why a rape kit would have been something that was automatically authorized. Maybe that's the case in this county. I don't know. But typically rape kits are done when you suspect evidence of rape. And the fact that it was collected and never tested, yes, there are backlogs in terms of rape kit testing time. We know that. And some of them are unacceptable in terms of the length of the backlog. But it sounds like this wasn't tested on purpose. And so that's what's very surprising to me. If you are so sure that the manner of death is hit and run, I don't understand why a rape kit was done unless the coroner felt that there was reason, or medical examiner felt that there was reason to suspect evidence of assault.
If this rape kit was collected but never tested, is it gone now? Is it something that can be tested anymore? Or
That's a really good question. That's something I would have to look into. It really depends on the city, right, or the county, or whatever the jurisdiction is. Some county states jurisdictions have timeframes in terms of when these are destroyed, and when they're kept. I don't know the case in this jurisdiction. I'm sorry.
Is there a way to find out the answers to the questions of why was this ordered to begin with? And then why was it never tested, and find out who made those decisions? Or, and then get some answers there, because it seems there's a lot going on in this case where things were moved in certain places on purpose, which weren't necessarily beneficial to figuring out what happened to Stephen.
Look, they're going to have to bring in either a different police force from a different county to investigate this, but they can't investigate this themselves, right?
Yeah.
When there's clearly evidence of either misconduct or wrongdoing on the part of the SCHP. And so I think, the issue here is going to be, they will have to, I am certain that they will subpoena the medical examiner's records. I am certain that they will subpoena police reports and all of those things. And my hope is within that's when they'll get answers to those questions. Now, if they were purposely subverting something like that may happen, then we may not get answers to those questions, depending on what they did or didn't write in their notes. So I'll be interested to see, but I'm 100% sure that these things will be subpoenaed. For absolutely, they have to be. When
they look into these sort of things, can you recall any cases where a smaller department like this was looked into, wrongdoing was found, and it was done purposefully? At least that's the way the evidence shows it. And then action actually being taken against those who were subverting justice, essentially? Or is this more of a slap on the wrist, or you're going to get fired? I mean, is there any repercussions for those if, in fact, there was a purposeful cover-up going on here?
Well, I think one case, and I mean, maybe this isn't the best example, but it would be obviously one of the more prominent cases, right? Is actually, if you look at George Floyd, I realize it's not the same type of crime, but if you look at Derek Chauvin, who's since been convicted, he had 17 disciplinary actions against him. And that is misconduct, right, on the part of the department for not doing anything about it. And they are being looked into, they are subject to multiple fines, and they are being reorganized. And so it's not obviously a small police department, but these things do happen.
Yeah. I guess that's the question is, when you have, bad apples, there's bad apples in everything. Like this, how does this continue on with 17 disciplinary actions? And yes, you're still on the force. I don't grasp this idea, because I have plenty of friends who are in law enforcement, wonderful, great people. But then you have, these idiots that are doing horrible things, and then it ruins the reputation for everything. It's just, but why do we see departments still standing behind the worst in them? I just feel like if there'd be more transparency to say, let's get rid of these people.
It's interesting that you say that, because in a way I was a victim of that. When I was at the FBI, there was misconduct that had gone on, and those people were actually promoted. And I think you run into the problem of sometimes people promoting the problem, because the reality is to them, I'm not saying this is right, but to administrators and people higher up, they feel that disciplining them, firing them, whatever, is going to take more time and be more of a problem and more of a headache. And so they are promoting the problem, right? It's a whole idea of failing up, I guess, if you will.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's a real toxic,
Right.
I mean, it does not do anything for PR, which certainly that could be used more of. And it's just let's do the opposite of what we should be doing here. And it isn't anything. Like, if it's a private business, if you have bad people, get rid of them before they take you down.
Right. And you would hope that they would have that same attitude. But I think, unfortunately, particularly when we look at, I think this is the South Carolina Highway Patrol that made the initial discovery of this, right? And then it was SLED that took that over. And so I think when you're looking at government funded entities. The problem becomes is there's too much of a process almost to fire people that it becomes a headache. And that's what we need to change, right? Yeah. Because otherwise people aren't going to take those risks and take that action to do that. And that's what's problematic, because you're right. It's going to keep going on the more and more bad apples that you have. And it's a bummer because it does pollute sort of the pool for everyone.
Yeah, without a doubt. But then it goes to the bureaucracy of it that makes it that much more difficult.
Right.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
The Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Bruschi.
Tracy Walder, former FBI, CIA, thank you for your insight into this area. Always fascinating having you on. Be sure to check out Tracy's book, by the way, when you get a chance, called The Unexpected Spy. Very, very intriguing. Be sure to press subscribe wherever you download podcasts. You don't miss any breaking updates or discussions on the cases that we cover for you right here. Get an ad-free experience through Apple Podcasts. My name's Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.